I'm gonna tell you a story. But the first thing you have to understand is, time doesn't work the way you think it does. You can call me Oracle because I'm the one who's talking to you. Welcome to the cult. Alright. Working on a book of Troth by Edward Thorson. Boom. Part 2. Working True. True work. As has already been said in several ways, the Troth is a way of doing. It is a karma marga. It is an actual. It is in the actual working that one does in both everyday and holy settings that a man and woman is really determined to be true. To be true, one must work true. There's some things about this book I really like. That's one of them. In the second part of the book, we will outline the thing one need to know in order to begin this true working. The watchword here will be simplicity. We'll only be going through the basic things one needs to go to begin on the road to Troth. Too many people get caught up in the technical details, which hinders their beginning and eventual progress. We'll begin. We will talk about tools one needs to begin, and the timing to be thought about when undertaking blessings. Most importantly, we will outline the basic procedure and formulas used in building traditional workings so that you can begin at work to improvise while familiar with the traditional framework. That's important because if you've been watching a lot of the videos beforehand, what you'll know something that I've done is I've taken a traditional framework, that is to say, I'm a Buddhist monk, and I took I took mop magic and I improvised with them. Here we will also present a complete set of rituals, which one true man or woman can use to begin working true. The texts for kindred workings are also included so that person working in groups can effectively begin to quicken and revive the spirit of truth in a highly traditional manner. The formulaic outlines in chapter 26 are the real mainstays for the tradition. The basic formulas are known to have been the traditional ones used in courts of the Viking Age. I'm willing to take this dude's word on it. I mean, I might actually check his references if anything seems like suspect. But I gave a quick glance through this already, and it looks, pretty traditional, honestly. However, I'd like to point out that part of the tradition of the Troth lies in individual innovation. Do not be shy about varying elements of these rituals or of any eventually creating your own rites. What are presented here are only examples of what can be done. All are encouraged to practice for some time with standard workings, the only after that to begin to innovate. After such innovations have begun, deviation from the formulaic elements presented in chapter 26 is discouraged as far as the great blessings are concerned. 26. Is this 25? Is 24? I think it's 24. Yeah, it's 24. Oh, 26 I think is wait, working. Okay. Right. Anyway. Another vital part of working true is spreading the word about the existence and nature of the truth and the ring of truth. In this, every true man and woman can help in the work of the hammer of Thunar as it swings out in ever wider springs to spread the truth of the gods and goddesses of the north. We in the Ring of Truth do not recommend proselytizing in any form. It is not our job or intention to convert anyone in any way. I like that. I like that a lot. It is, however, our work to make information about the existence of the Troth available to all those who might be interested in it. The Troth is a folk religion. It is, as such, is a birthright of all who belong to the folk. It follows then that is not some sort of secret order to be kept hidden and obscure within closed cell structures. This is an open door into the garden of the Troth, and all who feel they belong to our folk shall be welcome to enter freely and of their own will. I like that. I like that a lot. Tools and settings. In the performance of the rites and rituals of the Troth, the true individual will have a minimum set of tools with work. Special tools become more necessary when working in groups, kindred or hearths of the Ring of Troth. Basically, when you have a hearth rule like a Sanamani, they have something in here that's the equivalent of a special hearth, which is like, I'm guessing, like the equivalent of a temple jewel, like a Mandamani. In this chapter, we will consider the actual tools used in this work in Troth, as well as overall setting of such workings. For this final point, the writer is also referred to Chapter 9, the year for a complete discussion of the Holy Calendar. Yeah, I went through basically all that stuff earlier in a previous episode. Like, not this, actually in the one where I was covering this book specifically, but in the Wheel of the Year episode. Tools of the Troth. Most workings will require will make use of the tools discussed below. Certain special rights may involve others, but they will be discussed here. These basic tools, etc. Hammer token should be worn when doing any true work. This is basically, in D&D terms, this is basically a holy symbol. Like, it's a religion. This is religious stuff, essentially. For those who choose to work within the Ring of Troth, a special hammer token will be available. For those who prefer to work on their own, of course, any sort of hammer token will do. A harrow or altar. Ogana, Carpenter's Bench. Not even joking. Should be set up upon which all holy work is undertaken. The harrow may, of course, be indoors or outside. Indoor harrows are usually made of wood. Tables are most often preferred, and should be at least 2 feet by 2 feet. But any dimension will do. It's preferable if this object is used for holy work only. If the harrow is outside, it is usually made of stone. However, the indoor harrow can be also moved out for rites are best performed in that environment. Indoor harrows are called stalls. Oh, I meditated outdoor once. It was interesting. I did in my driveway. It's very strange doing something like meditation in public. Like, even if like no one sees you, it's just a very different experience, I found. On the harrow, there will be 4 items: the horn or cup, the blessing bowl, the evergreen twig or evergreen tine / twig, and the vessel of liquid, usually mead, ale, or beer, arranged as so. Boom. There be. The horn is a very traditional vessel from which to drink the holy draft during working the blessing. A cup or chalice may be used for this purpose. The blessing bowl should be made of wood, and it should be large enough so that it can hold approximately half of the contents of the horn or cup being used. For indoor rites, there is also to be an auxiliary bowl, which is placed on the floor to the side of the harrow. The auxiliary bowl will receive the outpouring of the liquid, which in outdoor rites would be poured directly on the ground. So, like a libation. A libation is actually very common. It's pouring usually something alcoholic over a something. It's like an ablution, but not, because an ablution is done with water in order to purify. But a libation is something done during a rite that's ceremonial, but not for specifically, usually for purification. Usually it's done as an offering to the dead. Like, honestly, like pouring some out for your homies, that is literally one of the oldest rites to the dead ever. Like, I'm not even joking. Like, it just is. It's mad old. Like, people may think it's like, oh, that's something that only happens on the street. It might only happen on the street, but like, that's just because the street remembers stuff that like the houses remember, but the people who live in them don't remember anymore. The tine of evergreen is to be freshly cut for every blessing from some conifer tree or bush. It is normally placed on the ground or in the auxiliary bowl and marks the spot where the final outpouring of the sanctified liquid is to take place. It is, of course, primarily used as a tool with which to sprinkle the harrow or kindred with the holy liquid to actually do the blessing. The vessel containing the vessel containing the liquid to be used in the blessing should be a special one. It will be used to pour the mead, ale, or beer into the horn before it is circulated and hallowed. The vessel is usually an earthenware bottle or jar. These are then the basic tools for conducting rites and blessing of the Troth. Settings for work. The rites of the Troth may be conducted indoors or outdoors, as will be noted with each blessing and or other working and blah blah blah. The indoor rites are best conducted in a special harrow used only for that purpose and set up in a special part of the house or apartment. It is best if you can use the harrow set up in a permanent way as a shrine to the goddess of the folk, but it's quite acceptable to store the holy tools of the Troth in a way showing them respect and to bring them out only at times when holy works be undertaken. Very rarely, in my opinion, are people like affluent enough to have their own little room to meditate in. Like, it'd be nice, but like most people, like me, I'm like pretty good in terms of my amount of living space compared to, especially compared to a lot of other people. Even in America, there are a lot of people who just like live in a closet essentially. But like that is not the norm. But even still, I don't have my own room to meditate in. Wanted to use my bathroom for that. Like I'm lucky I got my own bathroom. Like that's like right off of my bedroom. I mean that's honestly that's a pretty sweet deal. I didn't even know how sweet a deal it was until I had it. But like that's not normal. It's just not. I know. I lived without it my entire life. So like I lived like 40 years without my own bathroom. Like I know for a fact people usually don't have like the option of having their own like meditation room. I have my meditation room. I'm going to go commune with Buddha. Yeah, as if. But like seriously, I mean like every time I see this in a book, I'm like, yo, for real, yo, for real. Who? How? How do you just like have that? Like, admittedly, when was this book published? Let me double check when this book came out. When Edward Thorson published this, 1992. Woo, it's like 30 years ago. Dude might be dead. I'm gonna have to look that up. Oh, interesting thing about Dre and Mika Herrick. I looked him up. Can't find a date of death, but dude has to be like 100 or 106 if he's still alive, because of his date of birth. Like I'm not even joking. He was born in like 1904 or something like that. I mean like 1918 or something like that. Like I'm not joking. I'm not joking. Maybe publishing the Abracadabra Charm did him some real good. That'd be cool. Let me see. All right. The outdoor rites, of course, can be held in one's own yard, which is perhaps the best of all places for such works from the standpoint of sacred significance, because it's close to your home. A lot of folk religions look at the home as a sacred space, which is, in my opinion, a good way to look at it, because, like, especially for things like, the Mahasvapna, the dream, like, home is where we sleep. Home is where we sleep, and home is where, like, physically speaking, we dream. So, like, that's two reasons right there for it to be considered sacred, at least from, like, an understanding of how much, like, mystically speaking and magically speaking, the prema, which is, like, essentially the Vasra of Mahadesya, Mahazunya, and Mahasvapna, like, the Great Void, the Great Dream, and the physical. Like, anyway, it's a sacred place. The prema is, like, sacredness. Anyway, in chapter the advantage of setting up a harrow on one's own property is obvious. Stones upon which blessings are given take on a spiritually holy aspect every time blessings are held on them, and they become holy themselves. But when working in open land, any natural object or even a portable wooden harrow can be used for conducting the rites. In Chapter 9, the traditional timing of the greater and lesser blessings of the year were given. This is also noted that these dates were, in many cases, approximate and often governed by local conditions and traditions. Yeah, that's something that's interesting about tying this actually back to Buddhism. I mentioned this before. A lot of the times, when like an itinerant Buddhist monk would roll through, the ones that would convert were often actually their local Manavid, and they would become like, a Manavid, but they would also be an Ambastamba. And that's, I think, actually, honestly, where a lot of the animistic elements of uh, Omnioshi sort of intersect and have a Basra with traditional Buddhist Vaishnavas is because they would basically like, and sometimes itinerant monks would find a place that didn't have anyone, didn't have an Avastama, didn't have a Manavi, didn't have like a Yamakatu, they didn't have a medium or anything. They just like, you know what? I'm kind of clicking with you people. Do you guys mind if I stay? And they're like, no, please stay. And that's usually like how itinerant monks settled down. And they would often pick up the local like religion, because often every village had their own little variant where like, which was often included like the well-known gods of whatever like local pantheon was recognized, and the ancestors of that village, because there's usually like especially an especially good example of this is the Gede from the Loa, because the Gede are like considered one group, because like when we're dead, we're all one tribe, we're all the Gede, like, and like the Yoruba, the Thon, the Dahomey, they all had their different. They each had their Ezuli. They each had their Ogun. They each had their Azaka. They each had their Dambala. They each had their own. But the Gede was the one that they all shared, as far as I'm aware, at least. Which is actually like a very realistic way to look at things, in my opinion. Um, in the Troth of the Day, there's just much reason for having flexibility and locally determined time for the workings of the rites as there is insight in Knight's Cure. They are perhaps different reasons, often associated by socioeconomic factors rather than factors having to do with cycles of nature. Socioeconomic factors are no less real in our lives today than natural circumstances to our ancestors. Wait for that dude to be reckoned about living in the modern Yuga. There are cycles of production of the means by which we live. They should be taken into consideration by setting the time of a blessing or other event of the troth. Yep. Yep. In determining a title for the holiday or a holy event, such factors as time needed and time available should be considered. The blessing ensemble and all other events planned are going to. Ensemble is like a. It's like a go to Kakra. It's like a ritual feast. It's a ritual feast. Like it's a feast, but it has like a specifically blessed aspect to it, like a go to Kakra. That's a tantric feast. I did them. I did a whole series of them earlier. In fact, the work is same. And in determining a time for the holiday or holy event, such factors if the blessing and ensemble are all to other event plan are going to take several hours to prepare and conduct, it would be unwise to hold it on a weeknight when most of the fellows in the kindred will have to work the next day. The factor is, of course, less important when working alone. In absolute terms, there are three ways to determine the best time for holding a blessing or other get together. One, traditional mechanical time, that is determined by events in the heavens, solstice, equinox, so forth. Two, traditional organic, that is a local custom of having, for example, Easter blessing on the first Sunday or Saturday of the morning after the appearance of a robin redbreast or a violet. Three, taking into account the general timing determined by the heavenly events in order to set a time convenient for most of the folks involved. Boom, boom, boom. And that shall be it for Not So Sweet, and I'll move down into chapter 26, Oh So Sweet. Oh, and until then, all to say, dream safely out there from Oracle me.